Hey friends, welcome back to the cabin, and today I wanted to talk to you about fowl pox and my unconventional way of treating it. Recently, we were hit with fowl pox in my little flock of Delawares, and being that we do a visual every day on our animals and we actually interact with them every day, I noticed real quickly that something was off. I did discover that we did have fowl pox, and fowl pox is a virus. It's much like what we would think of as chicken pox in ourselves, but it's not actually. It's a chicken pox for chickens, so to speak, but it does not affect humans, the actual avian pox that we're talking about today. And what actually clued me in as to something being wrong is one of my hens had a spot on her comb, and at first I thought maybe it's just where they're pecking on her, but then I realized that that wasn't the problem. And then I also had two of my, what I call my runny hens. They were always a little bit smaller, a little bit slower to mature. They were acting just a little bit off. Now, I didn't see anything on them. They didn't have any spots on them or anything, but they were just acting a little bit, you know, kind of like when you first come down with the flu, you just don't feel good. So I knew that I had to get a plan in action and get it going quick. Now, fowl pox comes in two forms. You will find a dry pox and a wet pox. The dry pox is what we actually had, which is, that's, if you're going to have it, that's the better of the two to have to deal with. With the wet pox, you'll observe sores in their mouth, and those sores can even go down into their trachea, and they can suffocate from it, and so you can see that the wet pox is a little more difficult to deal with. The dry pox is only going to manifest itself outside on non-feathered areas, primarily their head. I decided to go a little bit unconventional. I wanted to do something a little bit more natural, and so a couple of things. First off, the first thing that I did unconventionally was I did not isolate the chickens that I saw that had evidence of fowl pox, which was only at this point 3 or 4 out of 19 chickens, counting my grandma chicken. I didn't isolate them, and the reason I didn't is because I felt like, well, the whole flock has already been exposed. And the place that I would isolate these chickens to be safe from predators would have been in the barn. And the barn tends to be a little bit darker. The air is not as fresh. They don't have access to sunshine. And I felt like they would actually fare better where they were in the open pen, where they could come and go as they wanted, and they would get plenty of sunshine and vitamin D. So I didn't isolate those, but I knew that I was going to have to treat them all. Even the ones that may not have contracted the pox, the way that I was going to treat was just going to be a great boost to their immune system anyway, so it didn't matter. So I just felt like I had better control if I kept them all in the pen and made sure everybody got everything that they needed. So the first thing that I didn't do was I didn't isolate. And then the next thing that I did was I used elderberry, and it is full of antioxidants to antiviral. It is just a wonderful herbal superhero. So I make the elderberry syrup for the family anyway, and we take it on a regular basis, especially since the COVID has been so prevalent around. We just take it as an extra boost to our immune system. So I had some elderberry syrup already made up in the refrigerator, and what I decided to do was I wanted to just put it in their drinking water where I knew that everybody would get a dose all through the day. So I had no way of knowing how to dose it, so I just kind of stabbed in the dark, and I put about a half a cup of my elderberry syrup into about 2 gallons of water, which is about what one of their waterers hold. And I took all sources of water out except that. And also, for about 3 days in a row, I supplemented their feed with a non-flavored yogurt. And it was some homemade yogurt that I made from Lily's milk, so it was already raw to start with, and then it's some that I cultured with a yogurt culture, so it was loaded with wonderful probiotics. So I actually supplemented their feed with that over the 3 days when I felt like it was the most important when we first started. So that was another boost to their immune system. And in the midst of all of that, I needed to make more elderberry syrup for us. So I had the spent elderberries left over from that, and I put that in a pan out here for them to eat on. Over about 4 or 5 days, I was supplementing their feed with either the yogurt or the spent elderberries from the syrup that I made. And what normally takes several weeks to go through a flock, within a week, we were totally pox free. It only made sense to me that that would be a go-to to try, and I have to say that it was absolutely successful. My flock emerged on the other side of fowl pox stronger. So as far as elderberry and chickens go, I'm a believer, and I wanted to share this with you to hopefully give you another option if you find yourself in that same situation. And you know that I'm going to share these beautiful words with you. Don't ever forget that your Heavenly Father loves you. And I'll see you on the next video. God bless.